Okay, so let me also stream the call so you can share the links with other people to join. Okay, thank you so much for joining, guys, today's call. So much privilege to have everyone join, and maybe you guys will keep joining. So there's a reason why I wanted to have this call and to talk about this topic for two reasons. One, we had a cohort and we didn't have so much time to talk about this API docs, so that is one reason. And secondly, I got lots of kind of queries from people around and really want to have this. And I decided to, okay, I guess it's time for me to have this topic because it's very important. And I've seen lots of opportunities online where so many companies need just API writers, API docs writers alone, not writing any other docs. So which means that it's very important. And with this AI coming up, there are so many companies building lots of AIs and they have APIs that you can access to get those AI functions. So they would need a tech writer. Now imagine a tech writer that knows how to write build docs, but you don't know how to build API docs or manage any of them, then definitely you lose that job. So that is the reason why I wanted to have this call. All right. What do I have my screen? Due to talking people and following person will be removed. Can you join after this starts? Okay. Okay, guys, so I've copied the link to the stream, so you can send this link to anybody that wants to also join this call. So thank you for joining. So my name is Mokocha Wisdom. I'm the lead of this technical writing community. And like I said, I decided to do this to share my own knowledge also. One thing I want everybody to notice that this is an API docs class where I will teach you how to document an API. So I will not be teaching how to create or maintain an API. So you just to record, let's say an engineer gives me an API, what I would do is to know how to design a docs to make it easier for other engineers to know how to use the API. That is what this class is all about, and not all about building building the APIs or writing the APIs or maintaining the APIs. This class is to design API docs. Right. So let me share my slide. All right, if you can see my screen, just let me know. Okay. Okay, guys. So today we're talking about introduction to API documentation using Postman. Oh, okay. Thank you. So we're talking about introduction to API documentation using Postman. Sorry, I don't know. I need to be shortly to accept people, so I have to wait for now. Okay, so now what is API documentation? So API documentation is like a website that has information about an API for engineers to use. For example, you have documentation like Stripe documentation. You go to that documentation, the API docs, to know how to use Stripe APIs. You have different fintech companies like Flutterwave. You also have, I guess, Google to have their own APIs too. You go to your API docs, you know how to use that. So there are reasons why API docs was introduced so that you have a different section that would show people how to use that is separate from from where the engineers work. Because if the engineer should show you the environment they use in doing their API, designing the APIs, and they just copy that to show you, you might get confused. And one other reason is the APIs that you see online is not only used by engineers. We have some project managers, product managers, CEOs, co-founders, even non-technical people, the marketers, that will also come to see and know how to use the API. So it's very important for everyone in this class to know the reason why an API docs is being introduced, and to also know that it's important to have a standard API. And there are different platforms you can use to design an API. You have Postman, you have Swagger, you have RapidDoc, you have README, you also have Gitbook. They have a section for that. Mintify recently, they have a section to design an API. So these interactive platforms are all available, but I picked Postman because to me, Postman is the best, and I'm also a Postman supernova, so that's why I picked Postman. And most, companies that I've seen that are talking about API documentation writer or documentation engineer, they always have Postman there as the tool they want you to use or know about. So it's very important for you to know about any of these tools. So it's not being tied to Postman alone. You have other ones like the Swagger. Now, the Swagger currently, I think, is something that's being used by engineers alone when they want to build. I guess we have some engineers in the house, so when they want to build the API, they'll just quickly write a script to generate that. They won't document it in a way you would understand. They'll just put a few things and that's it. Now, the difference between a dedicated API writer, documentation writer, and an engineer is one thing. An engineer will just do it in a way he feels is the best to him, something he can just come back and understand that this is it. But a dedicated API documentation writer will want to make sure that anybody that comes to that docs, we know how to use it, not just to him or her alone, but the person is always putting the audience focus first. But an engineer does not have that time. So that's why you see most companies, they focus more on getting those dedicated writers, because an engineer does not have that much time, because they have other bugs, they have other things that bother them, they want to focus on. They don't even have so much time to look at the API docs to make sure it's standard. That is none of their business. All they want is the API is up and they're good to go. So now there are certain things that we need to look at in API docs. Now we have the component. So we focus on the REST API. So now we have the components of REST API. So before you want to document anything, so for the ladies in the house, before you want to cook any meal, okay, guys also cook, sorry. So everybody here, before you want to, cook anything, before you want to do anything at all, definitely you need to have an idea of how that stuff will be made, the component, the things that you need, the ingredients that you need to make. You need to know each and every one of them, their function and what they do. Else, doing that would be a major problem. So one, we have the endpoint. So endpoints is very important for you to understand an endpoint. So endpoints are the resources that are available through the API. So when you go to most APIs, you will see slash something, users, slash create, slash modify slash delete or slash, any whatever they want to add there. So that is your endpoint. So those are the resources that are available through the API. So they are typically represented by URIs, which is Uniform Resource Identifiers. Very, very important for you to understand that. For example, like I gave the slash users. So the endpoint might represent a resource that allows you to create, read, delete, or update a user, if slash user or something. So that is one thing you need to know. Now we have the next one called the methods. So REST API fully focused on HTTP methods. So we are focused more on HTTP methods. So these methods are used in RESTful web services to specify the type of action. So like the name implies, method, or let's say call it function, means action. So these methods are like HTTP verbs like the get, the post, the put, the update. Okay, sorry, put is update, sorry. And the delete. So they represent that. So for example, get is used to get a value from the database. Put is used to update, modify a value. You have post used in sending a value to the database, and you have delete, which is removing or erasing a value in the database. Now we have parameters. So parameters provide additional information to the API that can be passed along with a request to modify the endpoint's behavior. So one of the parameters we have is the path parameter. For example, you see an API that talked about updating a particular user. So you want to update a particular user. The only way for you to know that this is the particular user is by getting the ID of that. So that is where parameter comes in. The path parameter you call an ID. So the next is the request, response, and authentication. So I didn't do that. So requests are sent to the API to perform actions on endpoint. So all this I'm talking right now, you will see it in action as we go further on Postman. So requests are sent to the API to perform actions on endpoints. So they typically include the methods, the URI, and the parameters together. And the request body may also contain additional data such as data for a new user. So that is where you now type whatever you want to send. If it's something probably you want to get or probably you want to delete, that is the request you're sending. This is the request I want. For example, you want to send your junior one to get something. Say, okay, come, I want you to go and get biscuit for me outside. That is the request. So he would go and get the biscuit. And you'll definitely get a response. Him coming back to give you the biscuit or telling you, when I went, I didn't just see that particular biscuit, but look at what I saw. That is where the response comes in. What you've sent, you definitely get a response. They have the authentication and authorization. So they are used to verify users' identity and grant them access to the API. So some API are locked up, so you need to use this authentication to grant access to them. So the next one we have stuff. Sorry, my thing is scattered. Okay, I don't know what is wrong with the slide, so let's work like this. So why API documentation? So one, it helps developers to understand the capabilities of an API. Two, it helps developers to learn how to use the API. So if there is no API docs, nobody will know how to use your API. So three, it helps developers to avoid common errors. So there are errors that you probably need to avoid it. If you read a doc, you like, sometimes it might be in a situation where you want to do something, you've not read the docs, but you feel like, I think I'm a pro in this, let me just quickly do this. And you start finding errors. But the moment you go to the docs, you're like, oh, this is a little issue causing the problem. So if there is no docs, it's the problem. So the fourth point, it helps developers to be updated. So when something is changed, you go to the docs, you see, oh, this method I used before, or this endpoint, or this field is no longer available, so it has been changed. Then we need to probably, change that. Now you've gone to the docs, you've seen that it's updated. You are now updated. You now go to your code or go to your API docs and change everything necessary to change. But if it's not there, it's now a problem. So the reasons why docs are important are: one, it helps you understand; two, helps you to learn how to use that; three, helps you to avoid common issues; and the fourth one, keeps you updated. So now we have, what should API documentation include? This is I probably call it the D question, because I've gone through some docs and I see that most of them miss out most of these, I'll call it, ingredients or features. So we need to know this. One, the overview. So the overview has everything about that docs. You need to know about the authentication, how to do this and how to do that, or the error codes and that. That is where you have overview contain all those things. So you have the endpoints, it needs to be documented there. You have the methods. If this endpoint going through a put or a post or a delete, it needs to be there. So you have the parameter. If that endpoint requires the parameter, you must include it. If it doesn't, then no need of doing that. So, but it's very, very important for the docs should have that. So you have the request. So when you don't have a request, how would I know what to send or what not to send to the API, or the response to receive? Because most times when I started, I don't normally add response, because I feel, when you send a request, you always get a response. But it's good to have a response, so I would know that, okay, this is the likely response I will get if I should send this. So which means if I get a different response, then something is wrong. So it's always good to have a response so they know that I will get something similar to this. So always have an error code and always have your auth. It's important for people to know how to authenticate your API. Do you use API keys? Do you use BRR tokens or any other way to access your API? Always let us know that. Okay, so I guess come close to the end of this section of slides. So let's go into doing the very things with Postman. So if you have any question now, you can ask before we start Postman session. Okay, I have to waiting. All right, so no question. Okay, let's go ahead. Again, now, so this is Postman. So if you've not seen Postman for the very first time, this is how you see it when you open up your Postman. So I'm using a Postman desktop for this. Now we have a few examples we're going to use for this class. Okay. So now the first thing you need to know about in Postman is the workspace. So the workspace is a collaborative environment where developers and teams can organize, create, and manage their API projects. So workspace is just like, I'll call it like an organization you have, and everybody is in or under that organization. So it controls everything. You collaborate there, and your work is not being seen by people outside your organization. If you want them to see that, then they will have access to see that. So creating your workspace, you click here, you will see workspace clearly here. Then you have create workspace. But I've done that already, Postman tutorials for beginners. So which is this workspace we are. So look at where it's clearly here, Postman tutorials for beginners. So when you've created your workspace, the next thing for you to do is now to create your collection. So now a collection is a group of API requests that are saved together for easy access and sharing. So looking at this screen, you'll see the collection here. So click here and you'll be brought to this session where you now create your collection. So this is API class for this class. This is the class I had before, jokes. This is another one. So to create your collection, you come over to this plus. Now it's clearly here, create new collection. So if you click this, they have a template you can work with, or you want a blank collection. So you can click the blank collection, and like I explained earlier, that it's a group of API requests. So you're seeing here, add requests. So this is a group of API requests. You keep on adding more requests under this collection. So there are reasons why Postman, they have a collection here to make it very easy. There are APIs that are very huge that you can segment or probably categorize, where you have the sign in, where you have the sign up. Maybe sign up have 3 to 4 API requests. You have the sign up, you have the user, the profile, that has more requests. So you use this collection to categorize it so your API will be clean. So now let me just show you something. Imagine you call this company A and it has different APIs and you're having all the APIs all lined up under this collection. It will be very difficult for you to find a particular API request you're looking for. If you're looking for the sign in, like it's just almost everywhere. So that's the reason why they have this collection. So you have a category of sign in and sign up and profile, this and that. So when you go under any of them, so for example, this, let me give this, let's say call this sign up. So when I come under sign up, let me create another one, blank one, sign. So if I have an endpoint here for sign up, I have an endpoint for sign in. If I'm looking for any endpoint that should be under sign up, it's easy. So once I go here, I click and I will see all the API requests under sign up or under sign in. It's easier than having one collection, having everything together. That is not a good practice. Sorry, let me accept more people. Okay, so now we have created our collection. Now the next thing is request. So a request is a message sent from the client to the server that contains information about the desired operation. So today I will be using, I created one. This is the one I created, and it has so I created, it has create, you can create, so you can create a user, you can get all users, you can get user by ID, you can update the user by ID, you can delete all users and also delete user by ID. So most times there are companies you will join. Funny enough, engineer might just copy this code or maybe tell you this is the code, so you can look at this and get the API endpoint and everything you need to work with. So, but if you know API very well, yes, you might probably struggle a bit, but you'll probably do something. So looking at this, you'll see we have posts, so which tells you that this is definitely post method and we want to create something with the comment above, create a user. So you come here, you're seeing get, you're seeing get, you're seeing put, which means update, and you're seeing delete. So this is like, okay, yes, I know a bit of this, and this is like a starting point. But when you don't have an idea at all, you might not even know what put is. You'll be wondering what put is doing here. Even when it gets to Postman, you might not know what to add because you're confused. So it's important for us to know those methods, not like memorize them, but know the methods. Okay, now let's create one. I think I have what are the screenshots. Okay, so I have this screenshot. So I would like in the chat, before I start, I want to see the chat. So looking at this image, let me give like 2 minutes. So looking at this image, so this is the crate here. So can somebody just type in the chat how this will be arranged on Postman? And maybe like you can copy and say this is the request or this is the response, or this is that. Just put it in the chat. Let me look at that. So let me leave this for a few seconds before I check the chat. Okay, let me, I think it is, can I copy this? Is an image? I don't think I can copy. Okay, I can copy it. Wow. All right, so it's in the chat. So we have this is API, it's a Postman. So now just tell me what we do with this, a request or a response, tell. So this is post, what it is, and how to add it. The two more is the method post define. Yeah, so we have other stuff here. Send the post request to the API. Okay, so what is the request there? Because Effion, I've told about the method post. We have the URL, but we don't have a request. So it will return a JSON response of the endpoint. Yes, but people are missing something. We have something, we have the full name, email stuff there. So what does that mean? We'll send from the form to JSON, use the post method, body. Okay. So what is this? Let me ask a straight question to put it in the chat. Body poster, okay. What is this I highlighted here? Post method request is payload. All right, guys. Okay, so let's go here. So from what you guys shown me there, so that is a post request. What do we have there? Okay, that's users, request type. Sorry, let me request type JSON. All right, so we have, all right, thank you, Rose, sorry. Thank you, Rose, and thank you everyone that contributed. So now on Postman, before I start putting up the stuff, let me explain a few important areas on Postman. So when you want to document, you need to know what this stands for: the params, the authorization, the headers, the body, the pre-request script, the test settings. So now the params. So Postman allows you to add parameters. So params is parameters. So allows you to add parameters to your API request. So parameters are key value pairs that can be added to an API request URL. So you have the query string or you have the request body. So you can customize it. So here is where you have to add it. So you have your key value, this key, and this is the value. So this is like a variable. So when you add a value, you will use this key to reference to this value to get it. So you have the authorization. So like I said earlier, authorization is used to authenticate the user and ensure they have the necessary API permission. So here, Postman have different types. You have the no auth, meaning there is no authentication. You have the API key where they will request the key. We have the bearer token. We have the JWT bearer, basic auth 0.1020, and a lot of other features. So depending on what permission the engineer built in the backend and they want you to use that permission to get access, then you have to use that authorization type. So you have the header. So header provide additional information about the request, such as the content type, the encoding, the cache, control, and all that. And you still have, control to add more. So look at the key value, you can add more. So let's say you add this, you have access to add more. So if you add more, you still have access to add more here. So that is how Postman makes it easy for you to add headers. So you have the body. So the body of an API request contains the data sent to the server. Postman allows you to customize that. Very, very important. Now, when you click on the body, you will see we have form data, XW form, the raw, the binary, and GraphQL. So we're not talking about GraphQL today. So the form is typically used when you want to send data as a key value pair. So clicking it, want to send a key value pair, and use that just like the way you have it in your web form. So in Postman, you can select this, which I just did, which is optional if you want to do that. So we represent that. Then you have the next one being the XWW form. So this format is used to send data in the URL encoded value pair, commonly used in HTML forms. So you have the raw. So the raw options allow you to send data in the body of a request as plain text or any other format you want. So you have plain text. So I want you to notice something. So I have this raw and it's giving me key value pair. So once I click on raw, just take a look at this place. You see an option that comes up there. Click on raw, you have this. So if you want to send a normal text via your request, you do that. If you want to send JavaScript, you have an option. If you want to send JSON, if you want to send HTML or XML, you use the raw to do that. So you have the binary. So the binary option is used when you want to send the binary data, such as an image, audio, or any file that isn't text-based. So also I want you to notice something. So when I click on the binary, it doesn't give me any space here. Like the raw gives you where to type. This gives you key value pair. This gives you that. But since this isn't text-based, you have to select. And your image or something you want to send, you use this to send that. So you have your pre-request script where you write a script that you want to run the script before your methods run. So there are people that do that. They will just run that before their methods run. You have the tests. You want to test your API to be sure that the API, meets everything, or the API has some values. Now there are also options for the test and the request. So most times you've added an environment variable, you've gotten a global variable and all that, but you want to check that actually this request has that before. Sorry, this request has that when sending, so you don't encounter problems. So you can write a test, check. So we'll do that probably maybe today or tomorrow. So you write a test to check that it has whatever you're looking for. Most times you might check that the status code is 200. So if it's 400, the test will fail. Or you want to check that the response body, the JSON response. Or you want to check that the request body is safe. JSON, you want to check that the request body is this. You write a test that will suit your API to make sure it fits into what you want. And we might also discuss this tomorrow. I know most people might, when you hear write the test, and I was talking about it's not for the engineers to do that. Now, why is he bringing up write code or write that? Yes, writing the test is writing a little bit of code, JavaScript code. But you have these snippets you can work with. Now, look at what I do. If I just click on this, it will auto-generate this for me automatically, so you don't need to write that. But once you run the test, this will go through. So what if this snippet does not have actually the test area you want to cover? So which means you have to write it yourself. So good thing for those that are not too technical, we now have postbot. So this writes all the tests for you. But mind is an AI, it might not be too correct. So you need to probably have an engineer alongside you that would help you if you encounter issue, if you're not too technical. But if you're technical, you can quickly fix it. So this postbot will write your test for you. So if you click on it, you write the kind of test you want, how you want it, it will bring up that test. And one way to do that is by clicking this and you have an option, but we'll do that in another class. So back to what we were talking before. So if you want to add, okay, let me go back again. If you want to add a new request, you click on your collection, you see this add request, you click on it, you have this session. So here is where you select your methods. Look at all the methods that are available on Postman. So you select the methods. So this is where you have your endpoints where you add everything. Now you want to change the name of your request. This is where you do that. So let's call this new user. Now, one thing again I want you to know in API docs is we don't use long names. So you don't get people confused. For example, somebody would leave this, or I might say create a user or create a new user. You have somebody else come here and write, this is this endpoint. Okay, let me see if it can see it come up here. Okay, so somebody else will come and say this is the endpoint that it's, you start writing what do that. this is. So I want you to look at this one. Look at how short, concise it is, straight to the point. So you have this is point that it's a new user from the client side. So let me just. So looking at this, you see how long it is. So Postman has to break it down. So when you highlight it, when you see everything. So this is too long. So to be on the standard side, make it short and brief. So now we have the body and the JSON response, and we're using JSON. Okay. All right. Looks like we are having errors here. Email. Okay, this was the email. So now, again, something to note. When you want to document an API, it's very important for you to know JSON very well. Because let's say, for example, you're documenting this and this comma is not there. You're seeing red lines everywhere. So you're wondering what is the cause of the red line. You will be so confused. So even if you probably highlight it, expected a comma, you might wonder, expected a comma, why will a comma be here? But if you know it very well, and maybe you've forgotten, you just see this and you see expected a comma. So you would know that, okay, I need to add a comma here. So it's important for you to know how to work with JSON and also Markdown. Not here, but you need it when you want to publish. So you have this. Now, this is what an engineer would normally do. When they build, they will come and test to make sure that the endpoint and everything they've created about the API is working fine. So as an API documentation engineer or an API writer, it's important for you to know how to test it. So this is the first step. Now, what we are doing is documenting, we're testing, we're saving. So when you want to publish, everything we've done here is what will come up. So you send your request and you get a response. Now let's explain this part. So you have the body, you have the headers that are involved that I've explained earlier. So test results, we didn't write any test, so we didn't check for anything. So this is the body of our response. Now this is the status. So you have status 200 to everything about 2 means that that is successful. Then this is the time it took. This is the size. And you can also save this as an example. So if you have any question, now you can ask or we continue. Okay, so while we're waiting, we have the next one, which is get all users. So let me see. Oh, I've made this here already. Okay. Let us have people in the chat to tell us what to do there. So that is a get. That's a get quest. So, and again, let me use a name. So we're going to call this get all users. So explain. So looking at this, let us use this one. So looking at this now, we have the sign in that we added this, and you want to add more requests. So you click on more action and you have add requests. So you can now add more requests. So you click on add requests. So that is get all users. So for some people, this endpoint will get all users. That is too long, remember. So all users in the database should display all the users we have. Okay, so what is that? So I guess I've done that before. All right, so this is it. Okay, let me use this. So you're being told that this will get all users, and we run. So you guys are right. So this is all the users we have in the database. So now let me give a short of in this. Yes, we have. Okay, don't document that. Hmm. So I would like you guys to explain this in the chat. We have this value at the end. So what does this value represent? So you have the gets. So we understood what this gets and all this one means. So what is this value at the end? What does it represent? It's an individual user, an ID. All right, thank you so much for that. So let's say we want to get this particular user Paul. So we click on this ID, and from what we have, this is the ID. So we run, and it's giving us only this. So which means we're going to change this from get all users to get user by ID. So it's very important for us to know name it very well. So you cannot say get, like imagine you say get a particular user by ID, too long. So get is very short and concise. So people would know that, okay, this is what it means. The long one is people will still know, but the most important thing in technical writing is making things that are too long, short, and straight to the point. So not short and people are confused. So it's better you go to the long route. So if you can make it short and make it straight to the point, not making it short and people are still confused. So now in Postman, instead of having this, let's say for example, you want to use this ID somewhere else, and you go to the next place and you're adding this ID everywhere. It's very stressful. So as long as you want to use this ID under this collection, so there is a way you can do this. Already, if you want to do it faster, you double click on your ID. Okay. You double click on your ID. I think it's appeared. Okay. Double click on your ID and you're seeing this set as variable. So you now set this as a variable so that anywhere under this collection, you can reuse this. So you no longer start typing all this long ID. Just call ID and it will come up there. So let's see how this works. So I don't want to pass through this place so you know where to take this. So we are under the collection sign in. So double click on sign in. So you have variables. So click on variables. So we have this as ID and the value as this. And not forget to save, because if you didn't save, you won't see it. You start looking for it everywhere. So where is that? Okay, so here. So instead of having all that anywhere, you just put your curly braces and you're having your ID. So you click on the ID and you have it here. So you run it, you still have safety. Now look at the advantage. Let me create a new. Let me create a new API request. So add this. Now, and this API request, I need to use that ID. So which on a normal day, I'll start typing the ID. So, but because I've saved that as a variable under the collection, just put your curly braces, you see the ID, you click it, and you're good. So anywhere under the collection, you can do that. But if you want to use a global variable where anywhere under your workspace, so that is where your environment comes in, where you go click any, create a new environment for that, or you click this global, add it here. So let's see if this works. See why. Okay, okay. So look at our team. Now, now let us go outside of this signing. So let's go to these jokes. And I want to add this to these jokes. So if you see very well, I can only find the TY, but I cannot find the ID because the ID was created under a collection called signing. But this TY is a global environment that you can use anywhere under the workspace. So this is very important. So most times you might need a value or something that you want to reuse anywhere under your workspace. You go under the environment to create it. But if you're using that under a collection, you go under that collection to create it. So you can reuse that under that collection. It's very important for us to know that. So let us go to this. Now, since we have known how to create an API, that is the first step. So let's come over here. So this is the example I use for this class. Now, Postman is huge, so I can't cover everywhere, everywhere under 2 days. So that's why it's 2 days, so that I can cover some areas. So this is what I've done so far. Let's say this is what you want to create. You have everything. So go by the left, your right-hand side. Let's keep this. So you see the documentation. So when you want to create this documentation, now when you want to publish, you have created this. Let's say this is the endpoint that we need. You go over to this place and click your documentation. Too big. Okay, so let's click on view documentation. So go under your collection, click and see view documentation. So far, this is what we have. Get all users, create users. And this one, I want to publish this for people to see. So this is now when we think we're ready to publish this for the public to see. So you click on publish. Sorry, it opened. Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry, guys. It's opening on my second screen. So let me bring in that screen here so you see. All right. So can you see my screen? Because this is the second screen I brought in. Let me be sure. All right. So when you click, on publish, it opens this for you. So looking at this is the current version. There is no environment variable I created. You can create one if need be. So if you want to have a custom URL for that, this is where you come and work on that. Now it has this option. Look at the design. Single, double is you're having a view by your right-hand side and you're having the other view by the left-hand side. Single, you don't have anyone. just at the up, and there is nothing by the side, but you have something at the bottom. So you can choose which one you want. You can choose your team, or you can use system. So the system will decide if it's night team or day light team. So you can change your logo if you don't want to use the Postman logo, but for now we don't want to change anything. So we'll have this. So you have your SEO where you give it a very good title so that users can find. So if it's a public API where you want people to look, for example, maybe a React API or something, you need to give it a very good title, add a very good description. So this is what would come online since it's going to go online, and Google will crawl this. So whenever somebody is searching for an API close to that, it will bring up your API URL for them to check. So so this is optional. What are we going to call this? Let us call this test. Test API jobs. All right. So if you want to change the workspace, you can change the workspace. So if you're satisfied with everything here, so this is the appearance, this is the URL, SEO, and all that, then you can click publish. All right, so view your API docs. So guys, we have our API docs live. So let me send the link for you guys so you can view it wherever you are. So this is the API docs for this class. You click on this link, you can access it now. So, but looking at this, know that these API docs would not help a beginner understand what to do or their whereabouts. So this is one, this is, you're having this, and that's delete, get all, query by name. So this right now is your API docs. But this, I don't know if you think this is good, but for me, this isn't good because it's lacking most of the things I mentioned about. I talked about the overview. I talked about having a request. I talked about having a response, also having an example that would help people know that, okay, this is how it should look like. But one good thing about Postman, it has that example for you, and you can save the example. Let me go back to our Postman. So you have this. Where is get all users. So you see save as example. So you can save as example if you want to. So it comes up there. So let us go back to our API docs. So you have delete, you have this, and you have get by ID introduction. So this is just blank. So if somebody comes here, they'll be confused. API class, no description, no nothing to explain, no way for them to know that this is how this thing works. They are so confused. Now, one other thing you can do here, you can change. Okay, this is for those that will come up here. You can change if you don't want this, you want this singular view, you can. Or if you want to go back to the double column, you can work with this. So let's go back to our API docs. So with what we've created under this collection, we have our API up there, and we can start designing and doing more. So I guess we'll have to stop here today. So tomorrow, go about making changes to this and making this what class, and also covering the area of tests, writing tests, and also using Postboot to write tests so you don't get to stress yourself thinking about tests. And I'll also now show you areas you need to apply tests. So that way you know that, okay, these are the areas I need to apply tests to make sure that my API is functioning fine. So when I push it out for the users, they don't use an API and start finding errors, and that is not good for the company. Customers complain a lot about the faults from the company, and it's not good. So the test will help you cover that, to test those areas before it gets to the public. So we'll also cover some other areas of API docs that we didn't cover today. So if you have any question, you can bring it up now. Thank you. Hey guys, any question? All right, thank you, Robert. No question at all. Okay, so while I'm waiting for question, I will just want to drop this information with everyone here. So next year by February, we are starting our program for beginners in technical writing, where we'll cover up so many areas. So let me share our YouTube channel. You can also subscribe, and you can also go check the videos of other classes that we have. These are our channel following us on Twitter or LinkedIn. So we have this. So you can follow us, subscribe, and watch the videos. Probably this one will be there. And again, to spice it up, we have one of our mentees that submitted his capstone project where he built an API, sorry, not an API docs, this is for the class. So he built a documentation site from scratch to finish. So before the class, you can check the link, this is the last link I sent. So before the program, he doesn't have an idea of what or how to build an API docs on how to approach that. But after the program, he could do that. And another good thing is he has joined the writing contest on Hackathon, and I wish him luck to win, and also has some other contracts he'll be working with. So it's very important for you to join a community that would help you out, and it's free, so it's not paid. The goal of the program is just to help people that are transitioning or those that are in the technical writing field already to have people to meet, learn from the best, and have resources they can cover up. So I'm also writing a book on API docs, but I hope I'll finish that with time, but that will come up very, very soon. So back to what I was saying. So if you have it as a technical writer, can I go into API documentation? Yes. This is why we have this class. That's why I said I'm not talking about building the APIs. I'm only talking about the API documentation. So these examples or these processes I just showed you guys is what you would do as a technical writer. So when you have an engineer give you this in a company, you be the one to do this. So while you're testing all these APIs, now one thing about technical writing in API section is that you're just like the SME, they call them the subject matter experts, because you're testing the API, so you need to know a lot about the APIs. So, and for those that are not too technical, when you want to go to the section of testing, that area you might also be open to tell your manager or tell whoever you're working directly on that, tell them that you're not good in testing. So they should look for the engineer to do that. It's very important to test. Now, but if you're so scared, you now have this post boot to help you with that. So I wouldn't want to touch it now so that we can do some examples tomorrow. So you use this to test your API. So the work of a technical writer, the work of a dedicated API technical documentation writer or builder or engineer is to make sure they build a standard API doc. Now, what we have here is what an engineer will normally do. They don't have that time to start, writing what it does, because you need to explain get user by ID. What it means. It means this endpoint gets a user by ID, just a short description to make them understand. An engineer does not have that time, but the technical writer does have that time. So he'll be the one to make sure we put in everything. So this is the way it looks like bare HTML, bare API docs without, the necessary features or necessary ingredients in it. So by tomorrow, you will get to see something that will look different. So let me send you one that I have, I think. So you get to look at this and see the difference. Okay, let me share the link here. So this is one. Now, going to this, you see the difference. I explain this, I explain that, the API, the endpoints, the requests, parameters explained, how to get this, and all these are written in Markdown. Whereas a Markdown is very important. So this is the error, you explain the error, 200 is okay, everything is working fine, 400 is bad request. Then you come under, talk about this, give them everything necessary. You request parameter, you explain the parameter. This is type, this is string, the description is the this and that. This is the request, this is the response, this is the body. So this is how it looks like. So if you want to use this to compare with what we have here, you see that this is empty, and anybody that comes here will get confused, like, what am I even doing here? So tomorrow we'll get to
Hello.
bring it like that.
Hello.
Yes.
Please, we can't see your screen.
Can I see my screen? Indicates. All
Yes,
right.
I can see.
All right, thank you. Okay, so sorry, so sorry. I thought I was sharing my screen. So this is what we did, and this is what it should look like. So this is the overview section where you explain everything about how to use the authentication, what to do, what to add. So this is what I did in the past. So I explained everything about the API, the request parameters that are necessary, and what they are. The type, the public key, the signature, and this. So I went down to talk about the errors where you have 200, 400, 404, or 500 down to 504. 504, not the car we know. So 200 means okay, and I have a description section where I explain that everything worked as expected. So once you see 200, you know it's fine. If you see 400 is bad request, I explain why it's bad request. 400 not found, the request resource does not exist. So we need to have all this. So your users, when they face any errors like this, and they see this error code, they will come back here and they'll say, oh, this is what it means. Now, some engineers will know that already, but you're putting it because of those that does not know what it means. So now I talked about different section about an authority in this project. So you use the post request. This is the endpoint, and this is the request parameter that you need. So I also explained the parameters. If it has a type, you talk about the type, so they know that this is a string request or an int or a boolean or any type at all. And you don't just stop there. You go further to explain what it does. So the type, talking about the string, description, account URL, public key. This is the public key used in verifying this ADI signing this request. So you go further to explain. You have this request session where you now this is the request. So I gave them full example of this request. This is how it looks like. These are the values you get to see the request. So now also further to explain, okay, this is the response you will get, and this is how it looks like. So if you see something similar to this, then fine, you got the right response. So imagine you don't have this, the user might be confused, like, okay, what should I be expecting? Should I be expecting something that looks like this, or does it have any value? But the moment the person sees, okay, what they are receiving, their response, JSON RPC, results, transaction hash, text ID, signature hash, and all this, they okay, yes, this is something I saw in the doc, so which means I'm actually getting the right response. Fine. So you have an example here, which is blank. So I give the request that has something in, and this is a blank. And this is how it looks like. So we'll be the one to fill up all these blank spaces. So once you add this, the user will be very, very clear that, okay, this is how it looks like, and I'm no longer confused. Fine and good. So we'll have to do something similar to this tomorrow. Looking at what we have, this is bare. We don't have anything. This is just empty. And as a user, you come here, you get confused, like, hey, what should I do? How can I, go about this? So tomorrow, cover up all of this. So any quick, okay.
Hello.
Is there a Lucifer?
Yeah. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Please, I want to ask. You sent a link via the chat about the
Yes.
guy that wrote documentation. Please, did he make use of let me just say some programming language, or is it only
Okay.
yeah?
Yeah. So this one he built is a doc site that is not an API doc. So he used Doxify, and we need to have little knowledge about JavaScript, HTML, and CSS to build that docs. So now I don't want to scare everybody here. Technical writing is not just for softwares alone. It doesn't mean you must be a software pro. You have technical writers that cover other areas. Your automobile, we have technical writers. Medical field, you have technical writers. That when you buy your drugs, at the back you see take this in the morning, take this two teaspoon in the morning, the afternoon. They have all those guides to help you. So those are technical writers that do that. The doctors might not have that time to start writing all that, but those tech writers take their time to write that for you. So that is how it works. So he used Doxifier and HTML, but purely Doxifier. So you might not even the Doxifier. Let me share the link. You might not even need to be a pro in JavaScript to create something like this.
Please let
Can
me
use
Doxify. What did you say? Doxify or what?
Doxifier. Okay. So since you're seeing my screen, let me search for that Doxifier. This is it. Okay. So now there are other tools you can use in creating API doc. So one I use README because the client requested me to do that. So that's why I said you can use others. So looking at this is README I use in creating this. So this is the overview where I explained everything about this. So look at the authentication. I explained that this is what you need a bearer token and your API key. So making requests, handling errors, I listed this, getting started. So you have, okay, let me look. So look at this. So this is how README looks like. So I explained that this is a sign up endpoint that lets you do this. This is a post. Look at the endpoints. Look at the request body to explain that this request should include the following parameters: parameter type, description. So, and you can also, that one good thing about Postman and some other platform is that you get to test it there. Not like you go somewhere else, you test it and see how it works. So look at other options they can show you to test, and you can try it, see that it's working very fine. So remember, I talked about in this getting started that you need this bearer token for authorization. So let's say you picked any of them, you're seeing this bearer token. So imagine I didn't explain it, you're wondering how can I get this bearer token? But because I explained at the top and how to get it, you now know how to get the bearer token. So that's the reason you need to explain very well so that your users don't get confused and start asking lots of questions. Okay, so let me check questions we have here. Is there a notify me list we can sign up to? Okay, yeah, for now, none. You can join the Slack community, and you can also, since you're following us on Twitter, we'll post it definitely. We'll normally post a notify me list for that. So by December, I guess that list, that form should come up. So we'll have people sign up for that. So we can't see. Sorry, please your screen. Okay.
Hello, hello.
Yep. Yeah. Hi.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for that. Thanks for the information. Presently, I have some knowledge on HTML, CSS, React, and then to some extent, I've been able to publish one or two articles on some certain platform like dev.tools and then Ashnode as
All
a
right.
technical writer. But I'm trying to go more into this stuff of technical writing and then try to work with one or two other people and then try to learn more from other people. You understand what I'm trying to say now?
Yes.
Because
So
you now you're an expert in this field now, and then at least I should be able to know more. You understand what I'm trying to say
yeah, sure.
about this thing? So even to some extent, I can then permit me to share you some of my write up I've done, and then some of my Git and my profile because I've
Yeah,
been
you
able
can
to do one or two things. Yeah, yeah, and
share
then
that in the
just for
community.
you to know. Yeah.
Yeah, so what you will do, you join the Slack channel and you can share that to me there. And we normally have our community calls once or twice a month. So I do that to have an opportunity to talk with everybody and also review
Yeah.
work for them on the call so other people get to learn. So you join the Slack channel, just drop that. Once I have time, I will go through that and give you feedback.
Okay. The live. What did you guys call it?
Slack channel. I know the Slack channel.
I'm not on the Slack channel. I don't think I'm on the Slack channel.
Okay.
Please, can I share it here? Can I just share the link here and then maybe you can just take a look at it?
I might not have that time. So, but the better is to share it on the Slack. So once I
Okay.
come up and have time, because I have lots of messages there, so I will just go through it and drop
Okay.
on it.
Thanks so much.
Okay, so I will drop that now.
Okay.
So where is invite people? Okay. So, all right, so I've shared the link.
Okay.
Okay, so
Thanks so much.
yeah,
So
cool.
I'll drop it on the group now, and then you can just present me to review it, and then
All right,
yeah. Thank you so much.
welcome. So is API documentation different from any technical writing in terms of referencing? Example, you try to give an example of a code base that is not out of the code. So is API docs different from? Yes, it's different because the major work of that is just to show APIs alone and nothing else. So, and it also is referencing that. So when you want to get a knowledge about that, you, sorry, Shobo, can you mute?
Okay. Yeah.
So it references that. So it's a reference point for you to come back to learn about an API docs. But the difference is its main focus is API alone. So you have other types of writing, user guide that will guide you to use particular product. You have the blogging, you will have the white paper that will cover everything about a particular product for you to understand the in-depth parts of it. And you have other types of writing, but the API documentation is different because its main focus is just for you to know how to use that API and don't encounter common errors like I explained earlier. Now, some platforms like I've shown here, they present codes to make it easier for you. So with this, if you want to test via CURL, you want to test a particular endpoint, you use this. Since they have, okay, yeah, if you want to use Node, so this is what you install and you run this and it will run. If you want to do that on Ruby, PHP, Python, do they have other options? Wow, wow, wow. Okay. Okay, so you have C++, a HTTP. Let me check Kotlin, my favorite. Whoa, so you have this, you can run, and this exactly will run. So this makes it easier for you to, run an API and test. Postman also has that. So you come here, you select the language, is Swift, this is PHP, this is so Postman has a lot of it. So JavaScript, Java. So now Postman on is much better whereby it gives you different options. So you have Java, Fetch, Java, jQuery, Java, XHR, which is the old way of doing it. So it doesn't have, I guess it should have Azure. Okay, Azure. Node.js, native, request, unirest. So do we have, okay, doesn't have Kotlin. Oh, anyways, it has that, Java. So Java, okay, HTTP covers for Kotlin. So this is where you can get a language and test directly for that. So please, how will recorded be shared? So if you join, I will share it on Twitter and also share it in the community. So if you join, you also get it there. So links to the slide, please. Okay, I'll also share that. Can someone who has no coding experience develop an API documentation? Yes, you can, but it's going to take you a lot of time for you to document. So if it's going to take an API, somebody that has a coding experience, it's going to take the person 1 week. It's going to take you with no coding experience like 3 weeks because you're going to have back-to-back calls with the engineers just to understand a very minor area because you have no idea about that. So, but somebody that knows that will do that. Now, if you're in the call before, you see that I was testing, trying to make you understand a few other tips. So you need to know how JSON works. That is part of coding, a little bit of JavaScript when you go to the testing part. So it's important for you to know, programming. Now, you don't need to be an expert. Again, you don't need to be an expert. You don't even need to be, I don't know if a pro and an expert, they are different, but you don't even need to be an intermediate programmer. Just know how to test. Like they give you a JavaScript project, you know how to test to know if it's working or not. You know how to run a HTML file so that you can see the HTML on the output on your browser or being linked with CSS. Just know how to test and you're good to go. So let me say in programming, if you know 30%, you're fine. don't need to be an expert, because the work of a technical writer is not to code, it's just to read and understand the code, write. That's it. So please, can we get link to the Slack channel? I just shared that. Please, what's the name of the platform? Technical Writing Mentorship Program. So if you Google it, that's the first thing you will see with our website. So there's another question before we close. So we come back tomorrow to complete design of API docs. So let me stop streaming. Stop recording.